Today is Tuesday, Parashat Lech Lecha. The parasha of this week, there is a story that carries with it more than one message. It's Avram and Sarah are on their way to Egypt because there was famine in the land of Canaan. And Avram Avinu at that point notices that Sarah is Yefat Mar'eh, she's beautiful. She's beautiful physically. He's concerned that the people of Egypt will attack him. And he tells her, tell them that you're my sister. After all, she's a member of his immediate family, aside from being his wife. But he did not notice, quote unquote, until then, her physical beauty, because their whole connection there was a connection that was based on modesty, on the quality of the person spiritually, rather than the physical beauty. But going into a place such as Egypt, where physicality and materialism and moral depravity was very common, he was concerned. And that's why the Pasuk says, now I have to be concerned because we're going into that place. And also now he's able to notice something that before, due to their modesty and their tzniut, was something that was not highlighted until then. But they go to Egypt and Paro takes Sarah to his palace. And the Midrash says that anyone that wanted to approach Sarah, there was a malach there, that Sarah would tell him, Hakeh, hit, and he would hit those people who tried to get close to her, who tried to compromise her. They were punished. That punishment that took place in the palace of Paro set the stage for when the Jewish people went to Egypt, and they were there for 210 years, even though during the decades that they were slaves, no one approached in terms of the Jewish women to do anything to them, because there was part of the folklore in Egypt that don't get close to a Jewish woman. It's dangerous. You know what happened when their great-grandfather was here with his wife, and in the palace of Paro somebody tried to approach Sarah. He was smitten, he was punished. So it only happened once with Shlomit Bat Divri. It's a long story, and he was through something that happened there because of circumstances, but that was one exception in all the decades and all the many occasions where something could have happened between the taskmasters and their slaves. And then Paro gives Avraham lots of good, assets and flocks, and he sends him away with riches. Just like when the Jewish people left Egypt, they left with Rechush Gadol, with great riches. But the Pasuk goes out of its way to tell us that when Avraham Avinu goes back to the land of Canaan, he stops by at the same places where he stayed. In other words, the same motels where he stayed on the way to Egypt. He went down as a person with very limited means. He came back a wealthy person. He could have stayed in a 5-star hotel. He could have stayed in the fanciest places. If there are Airbnb, then he would have stayed in the fanciest one. But no, the Torah goes out of its way to say he went back to the same places where he stayed. And Rashi explains that from this we learn derech eretz. We learn the proper way to act, to have gratitude, to have hakarat hatov. You stayed in one place as a guest, even though you come back now as a rich man, have gratitude to the place where you stayed before. Otherwise, the guy that you stayed by before might think that maybe he was not a good enough host. So you have to be sensitive to his feelings, and you have to also have gratitude and go back to the same places where you used to. And I've seen actually many Meshulachim rabbis who represent yeshivot in Eretz Israel, and they come sometimes here to fundraise. They have a custom to stay always in the same place where they've stayed before, to have hakarat hatov and to be consistent, just like Avraham Avinu was. So these are some of the underlying messages in the story that we just spoke about in the parasha of this week. Baruch Adonai le'olam, amen ve'amen.